Board of Directors meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025, and it is 5:32 p.m. First on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to move on to item 2 on the agenda, operations. First up is food service contract. There's action requested.
Excellent. Thank you, friends. I added this to the agenda. We are in the third year of a 5-year contract with the AbbVie Group. They provide and administer our USDA directed food service program. We did have a food service advisory committee meeting, and so this is really a formality, but I just wanted to make sure we get your vote to move forward to renew it for another year and answer any questions you might have.
Why are we renewing it for another year when there's 2 years left?
It's a stipulation of the way that the state administers the USDA program, that it's a 5-year bid, but every year we have to renew it based on our satisfaction with the program.
Good answer.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the bid.
Thank you very much.
I'll second.
So that opens it up to any discussion or further questions. Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, letter B under item 2 is cleaning service contract.
Yeah, so thank you. Right, we have a different arrangement in all the buildings for cleaning services. But at the SVSU level, we have a contracted service that comes in and cleans second shift for this building, Beach Street and Division Street. And it's basically, we went out to bid. We had 5 for the walkthrough. We received 2 bids. One was legitimate, one was found to not be legitimate. And so we would like to continue with the service of janitronics in these 3 buildings for the next 3 years. Their rate schedule is on the back of the information in your board packet. And wanted to answer any questions you have about that.
There'll be an opportunity for discussion, but do we have a motion to move forward with the bid from janitronics?
So moved.
We have a motion by, who made that?
It was bad.
Is it Beth? Beth.
I did.
Okay,
Yep.
motion by Beth. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Sandy. Any discussion?
Holly, what does that mean when you said the other quote wasn't
Qualified? So we looked through industry's cleaning standards and looked at staffing per square foot and went through and synthesized both bids to make sure A, they were apples to apples, and B, they were going to clean to a level that's appropriate, and the other one was not. Publicly, I want to let you guys know we did also call references and current customers, and the information we gleaned from that made it clear that that was not the right decision to move forward with them. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, number
Thank you.
3 on the agenda, technology purchase.
Yes. This is for our annual Chromebook refresh. So the district every year purchases about 1/4 of its fleet, as we expect a 4-year lifespan out of the student Chromebooks. So we did an RFP soliciting quotes, and this year Dell Direct came back with the best price with a device that meets all of our specifications. We're looking for approval to move forward with purchasing a quantity of 600 of them.
Sorry, did you say Dell?
Dell, yes.
And so they're Dell Chromebooks?
Correct.
Got it. Do we have a motion to authorize the purchase of the Chromebooks?
I will make that motion so we can discuss.
We have a motion by Nicole. Do I have a second?
second,
Seconded by Ray. Any discussion? Thank you.
You said this is about, what's the cycle, Adam, that you do
Uh,
these on?
4 years.
So you're doing a quarter of the fleet each year
Correct.
to refresh. And what happens with the old ones?
So the old ones will go into being loaner machines, so dependent on their condition. So if they're just completely destroyed, they become parts machines. So we'll repurpose the parts. If they're still in usable condition, then they become loaner computers. So when something that's within its 4-year lifespan breaks, we'll issue like a 5-year-old Chromebook or a 6-year-old Chromebook as a loaner device. But we'll just keep using it until there is an end of life issued by Google from a software perspective. They won't provide updates, but we'll keep using it until we can't. And then when it becomes a pile of parts, they'll come in front of you guys as a request to recycle.
And, another question. If there are any other questions, mine will come back to me, I'm sure.
How many are you recycling? How many do you have in storage that you have available?
We try to keep about 10% in storage. The district's in a unique position because of COVID. They purchased a large number of Chromebooks in 2020. And we're working on trying to get out from underneath that. So there's a little bit more than 10% in storage. So the total fleet should be around 3,500 Chromebooks. This is for 600. I'm going to come back to you in July to order the remaining balance. But we try to keep it. The goal is to get the district back to a 10% mark, which is, if you Google it, that's like the best standard recommendation. So about 10% in stock.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good.
When did we start this 4-year cycle? Has it been going on for a while, or are we in year 2, or?
Yeah, so I started with the district late 21. So when I came in, the district just acquired about 6,000 Chromebooks. So we weren't purchasing devices for those years, but now we have to start trying to get ahead of that because all of those 6,000 Chromebooks will expire at the same time. So we started this process last summer.
I was gonna say, I thought I remembered it last summer.
Yeah, and we ordered a little bit more last summer, and that was to give us a little bit jump start. We ordered 950. This year, our target's to order 750. And then that should be the number that we keep ordering every year.
And I get, my last question would be, this is for 600, you want us to get to 750, why not just go for the full order now?
So the RFP was written for the full order. It's a funding piece, so we have funds left in this fiscal year that we're going to use to, I guess, get ahead on next year.
Got it. So next year, the hope is next year the buy wouldn't be.
So in July, when I come to you, I'll be asking for 150 to get us to that 750 number.
Yeah.
The way the RFP was written, the quotes had to be valid until July 15th, and the district had the option to break up the quote or break up the purchasing however they wish.
Oh, because it's gonna be in the next year,
Correct.
budget wise, it will be in next year.
Yep.
So how much of this is offset by grants?
This is all coming out of local funds. And my recommendation, because these are required to be used in the classroom for testing purposes, is to keep your Chromebooks in your local funds. If they're not in a local fund, you risk backing yourself into a corner from a budget perspective because we're not accounting for it. And it's not saying that we can't go after grants to like reimburse ourselves. But I would say that like, it's the appropriate action to keep purchasing the Chromebooks on a recurring basis in the local funds. So it's getting accounted for, and we don't end up in a position where we have Chromebooks that are too old to do, for example, the standardized testing or the digital curriculum that the district's been investing in.
Any other questions?
One more, licensing for the duration or adding.
So it's for the duration of the device. So it's for, I believe these are 10-year mark is what Google will support these devices for.
You're anticipating each year that this amount approximately will be needed every single year.
Correct. 750, not the 600, the 750 number.
Yeah, I mean, it makes this process of having to go through it every year and swallow the 750 hard. But I agree with the approach and that purchasing 6,000 and having them all get to be 3 and 4 years old at the exact same time, or, end of life at the exact same time, isn't any fun either, and probably costs more in the long run from an upkeep maintenance perspective.
And the cart is just something that has been destroyed that you needed to replace a cart.
Are you looking at the RFP that was published? There was a request for carts on there.
Yeah, Adam, could you explain the different documents? Because there's the RFP, there's a
Yeah, so there's
purchase
a
bid, and then there's the GCI quote. Just seems like we've
Okay.
got 3 different documents, maybe presenting 3 different components. So
Yep,
what,
so there's the RFP, the request for proposals, Chromebook laptops, workstations. It has the fancy language of special instructions and conditions. If you scroll down to page 4, that has outlined what we requested for this RFP to get pricing for summer purchasing. And then all of the proposals, vendors will always add optional items. So we did not request carts, but that vendor added carts for whatever reason. So the CDW is a vendor providing a proposal. The document titled US quote is Dell Technology, so that's Dell Direct, providing us with a quote. And then GCI is Gov Connection, providing us a quote. And then CTL is company CTL providing us a quote. And then the summary that I provided you guys was with my recommendation for tonight, which would be to purchase a quantity 600 of the Chromebooks from Dell Direct for the grand total of $161,964. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to come back to you in July to ask to purchase the remaining 150 out of next fiscal year. Same price. They're required to honor the price.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the quote for Chromebooks with Dell Connect, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Finance Treasurer's Report for April 2025. Do I have a motion to approve?
that's just to accept the finance report.
Yes.
I'll make that motion to accept the finance report.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Nicole, seconded by Katie. Any discussion? Right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? So we have next on the agenda, item 5, consent agenda, which is minutes, warrants, retirements, leave of absences, resignations, and nominations. There are no objections. I'd like to move those all as one. But can I have a motion to move the consent agenda?
I've got a name modification. Give a rise of Melissa Berry, it's Berry. Yeah.
BAR. Okay, Nick, I see Nick nodding.
Correct.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Glenn. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Katie. Any discussion?
The ones that were redlined, I assume that those were redlined from the original agenda because they are under the Arlington staffing as opposed to the SVSU. Is that correct?
Nick is shaking his head, yes, so you may not be able to see that, but
I
that's
can't,
the
but
answer.
I assumed that, but I just wanted to confirm because the
Okay.
documents were
confirmed.
still in the packet.
Yep.
I can send you.
Takes them out.
Yeah, you wanted to add everything in the consent agenda, but I wouldn't have a clue what was said for the minutes. I wasn't here, so I wouldn't be able to.
You can probably just abstain. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? And any abstentions? We have Sandy abstaining. Policy is number 6 on the agenda. There are none, so we can move past that. Up next, there is the superintendent's report. Like we have 2 short presentations.
Yes. Thank you for having us tonight. This presentation is a result of a request. This past winter when I was here, I gave a little update about some attendance work that was happening in the district. And the request was to come back at this meeting actually and to provide an update. So I'm here with a piece of our team tonight. I just want to make some introductions. We actually have an attendance team that a subcommittee, and then I want to honor that the SVSU counselors really take care of the attendance work in the district. So the 3 principals that sit on the attendance team are Principal Tim Payne, Principal Chris McGuire, who's here with us tonight, and Principal Deanne Lacoste. We have 3 lead counselors, Hannah Green, who's here tonight, and Jamie Josephiak, who's here from the high school, and Megan McEachran couldn't be with us tonight, but she represents the elementary school. So those are the 3 lead counselors that represent this work. And then we have our lead clinician, Katie Hall, who sits on this team as well. We have a lead family engagement specialist, Trisha Wright, who couldn't be with us tonight. And then we have community agency members that sit on this team. We have Kyle Hoover, who's the district director of the Department for Children and Families. We have Sheriff James Gully from the Bennington Sheriff's Department. We have State's Attorney Erica Marthage from the Bennington County State's Attorney's Office. And then we have Letha Cipriano, the Executive Director of the Center for Restorative Justice. And so that's our team. And so we're each just going to give you a little bit of a snippet of our work. And then we'll see if there's any questions at the end. So just as a reminder, our starting point for this work was exactly a year ago, where we actually decided as a group we really needed to sit down and address attendance. We still hadn't seen the rebound that we were hoping to see. And so we came together as a group to update our procedures. And we are really trying to make a shift to more of an intervention approach with attendance. And so what I want to share, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to put up our attendance checklist. And I'm going to have Hannah Green and one of our school counselors and Jamie Josephiak just give us some little snippets. So let me just share my screen. Can you do this? But Hannah, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. Hannah Green from the middle school, one of the lead counselors for the district. So this is the attendance intervention checklist that helps guide our work to support students who are struggling with attendance. Our primary goal is to partner with the parent or guardian to identify what are the obstacles or barriers on why a student is not attending school. Ideally, we like to have those discussions in person with the student to try to get a feel for what's going on and also physically get them in the building if they're struggling to get here. Although there are occasions when we meet them at home and we might partner with the family engagement specialist or with an administrator to meet them at home and try to have conversations starting there. With that work, we might develop an attendance plan that may include, just some incentives, or ideally, are there additional supports that we need to provide for the student to help get them to school, get them engaged in their learning. And then, if we're still struggling, we might bring in some community partners, whether that's UCS or Easter Seals or partnering with CRJ. So those are the different strategies that we use to help support students in re-engaging with their learning and attending school.
And Jamie, do you want to provide a little update about the high school?
Sure. I'm Jamie Josephiak. I'm school counselor at the high school and co-head counselor for the district. So as the students get older at the high school, we're focusing more on internal support. So this year we started a student support team where all of our support staff, the counselors, clinicians, administration, school psychologists, nurse, family engagement specialists, come together once a week for an hour, and we all sit at the same table and we look at kids individually, and we carefully review each student one at a time, and brainstorm interventions and support services. And then at the end of each meeting, we review previous students, so we come back to the table to assess what worked and make adjustments to add additional supports for those students. So that's sort of been what we started this year and what we're hoping to move forward with.
So again, we're implementing the interventions, and then to monitor the system, Katie.
That large, robust team that Laura mentioned is meeting every couple months with the school and community partners that are able to attend, are coming together to talk about kind of where is our data with attendance and petitions and where are we at with those. And then to, touch on the successes and where we're at and the things that have gone well, and then the things that still need some work and any gaps or anything in the plan where we're like, okay, we need more attention in that space. And that's been really helpful for me as the lead clinician for the district, because oftentimes we're not in the forefront of attendance, but a lot of our students do have attendance issues. So it's helpful to be involved in that.
Katie. And so it's important that you're collecting data to show that what you're doing is working. So, Ms. McGuire.
Thanks. Chris McGuire, middle school principal, excuse me. Comparing from, so data is certainly trending in the positive direction. And so that's really good news. And so in March 24, so about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, we had 250 students throughout the SVSU who had over 25 days absent. And 25 days absent is kind of an important threshold, because that, it's a attendance missing days, even less than 25 days. I don't want you to take me the wrong way. That's a significant issue, and it does impact learning, and the time out of class does add up. But 25 days, the reason I said it's an important threshold is that's the mark where we're prompted to submit a truancy petition, and submit that to the courts, and have someone else take a look at that. So it's kind of an important marker. And as this year, March 25. We reduced that number to 118, so 250 to 118 students. So it's, the needle's certainly moving in the right direction. And then just to break that out a little bit, Arlington School District saw an 85% decrease in students that had over 25 days or sorry, 25 days absent. The SVU ESD saw a 58.6% decrease in that same number of students with 25 days or more absent. And MAU schools, middle and high school, saw a 47% decrease in that same category. So all the schools across the district are seeing the same trend, that within the year time, which is the time frame that we've been meeting regularly with this group and putting some of these new interventions in place, we've seen a trend in the right direction.
So our next steps with this work, the counseling group is going to continue to be the lead in monitoring this work. So they use their meeting time to monitor the interventions. This is the first year where our multi-tiered system of support manual will have actual attendance interventions listed in our manual. And so I'm thankful for members of this team that have done research and attended trainings this year to find things for us to use with students. And then the team has requested again to meet with community partners next year 4 times. They felt like that was a great spacing. And those meetings will continue to identify strengths of the team. Strengths this past year were the checklist because it held the conversation together. And then also exploring other positive interventions linked to attendance. And then we have challenges. Some of our challenges are all the agencies that are involved in our work have different procedures and rules and calendars and timeframes. And so it's important that we come together because we're learning how to work with each other, especially when we get closer to when we do have to support some families in navigating truancy, and really what that looks like when we engage with our partners. So that's something that we continue to work on. So our goal for tonight, I wanted to really honor the work of the people that came tonight to be in front of you, to share the work that this is their work. And the data shows that we could not be more excited, and it makes us happy to know when you're working on something to see positive outcomes, and we hope that that leads to positive student outcomes. So again, thank you for having us tonight, and that's our
Thank you.
update.
Any questions?
Yeah. What's the overall attendance rate for the SU?
I don't have that number tonight, but I'll write that down as a question. Thank you, Sandy.
How many students have exceeded the 25 for this year? Is that the 100?
Yeah, 118 as compared to 250, and that's as of March.
And they all have plans?
We have a
They
checklist.
all have been engaged with interventions of some sort. Yes.
And there's an attendance checklist for each child.
I was just curious if there was a mediation plan of some kind.
So that's what the checklist really highlights, that piece, and one piece of it, and I'll let Hannah and Jamie jump in, but it really highlights the importance of that's also when we might start the educational support training process or the EST process. Hannah, correct? How'd that go, Jamie?
Yeah. So the initial thing when we start to see that a student is not coming to school on a regular basis, is we'll contact home. The school counselor is typically the first intervention to meet with the student. So we start the interventions. We have in the past, and we continue to kind of use the marker of, at least in the middle school level, by the end of September, if they miss more than 3 days, by the end of October, more than 5, to kind of help give us, and the checklist indicates days. If they've missed more than 5 days, start to have a conversation with them by a certain, obviously by the end of March or June, if they've missed 5 days, we're not as worried. If by the end of October they've missed 5 days, how that impacts. And then if the child's not engaging or the parent, we might, by phone, we might call them in for a meeting, develop a educational support team plan, where we might bring, if they're seeing a school-based clinician, or invite the UCS caseworker, therapeutic caseworker, teachers to start having those conversations. So if we're concerned about their attendance, we'll start some of those interventions.
So the students that have exceeded the 25 days, is there a program over the summer for them to help get them to grade level or to help get them closer?
Well, any student at the middle school I can speak to, and I think it's, I don't want to jump and say this for everybody, but I think it's true across the SU in that, like at the middle school, any student that is not meeting any standards in any domains. So we look at their grades at the end of the year. If they're not meeting any standards, if they have a 1 in any domains, they're invited to come up for the summer experience. And so we provide them with, you know, a month-long experience through July War, engaging them and trying to catch them up to grade level standards.
Absolutely. I was just concerned because in the beginning you had shared that it's impossible to teach a child unless they're in the classroom. So I was wondering how many of those children have a plan for the summer, or if that's something that just hasn't happened quite yet.
Well, I think every situation is different. If I go back to Jamie shared the SS to the student support team at the high school, which is a similar model at the middle school, and then our smaller elementary schools have similar plans. This is very diagnostic, so every child has a template, and so the goal, and you're bringing up a great point for the team to consider, and they'll make notes, is like what you know, I'm sure some children might have something scheduled, but every child has a different individualized plan, and I think that's the beauty of why we're seeing the success. But I do think this is a note we can take away, is what does it look like in the summer? Thank you.
Could you repeat that last sentence, Laura?
Let's see if I can remember what I said.
Or at least the sense of it.
Yeah, so what I think has been developed is every child has their own plan. Every child has, when there's a concern, the checklist kicks in and there's a team like paying attention to this child. And so the plan is very individualized, and, you know, Sandy brought up a great point to make sure that we're thinking about what is an out of school, either after school or summer experience possibly look like that could also help. And that's something we can consider when they're looking at revisions to making to the checklist this summer.
So I'm gathering, so there can be a student. One can't assume that just because a student has missed over 25 days, that they would be in the category, they would be notified or expected or it would be hopeful that they would they wouldn't necessarily be getting ones, right?
We don't, you know, base summer school or summer experience on seat time. And so
It's based on
and it's, you know,
2, 3, 4.
it's based on if they're meeting standards or not.
Right.
And now, obviously, that doesn't mean we're not committed to putting a plan together to get them to school. So I think what we're saying is that these cases they differ so much, like the barrier and the reason that students aren't coming to school, it differs, you know,
Sure.
and so, you know, summer school plan is not necessarily what's going to help for every kid, a summer experience plan. And so if they're not meeting standards in school and they need support in getting there,
Then they will get
they're
that
scheduled
summer
to
plan.
summer school.
Right.
And if not, pull up that intervention checklist, it might be a coordinated service planning meeting, might be an FSP meeting, like there might be other means to, might be that we need to connect more with community supports to support mental health or to support other aspects. So, I wish it was as simple as cookie cutter, like, hey, everyone does this and then it's good to go, but it's more complicated than that. And so, yes, every student we're engaging with every family that hits that mark. Summer's experience might not be the answer for every one of them, if that clears it up at all.
My apologies. I was under the impression that there was a state statute that required a certain number of days seat time so my apologies.
The educational quality standards focuses on learning. And so it's about proficiency and monitoring what they're learning. And so what we're trying to measure, and part of these conversations are, what do they need to know? And then what are all the opportunities we have to help them get what they need? And it could be tutoring. It could be by a certified teacher. We have a bank of tutors that we keep track of now, which was something we didn't do before. We, again, have access to different experiences that we're offering. So again, but it's very diagnostic.
I think the Act 71, the Personalized Learning
Yeah.
Act focuses in on focusing on proficiency for students.
Yep, and pathways.
Right.
And my understanding too is that the attendance policy, correct me if I'm wrong with this. It was sort of changed to where summer school. You can't, if you've missed, even if you've demonstrated proficiency, you can't attend summer school to get the seat hours if you have an attendance issue. Is that correct?
So I'm gonna go back and say, like, it's super diagnostic. So it's, to me, it goes back to what do they know? What do we have documentation that they know? Linked to the graduation requirements that we have established for this district. And then what do they need? And then we're trying to match them with that need to make sure that they're getting that piece. So we just had a conversation around a child, and we were looking at what was their body of work and where were their gaps and holes in their learning, and then what do we have available to help fill that, so we can get them to the graduation requirements, which we're required to have as a district.
So it's, if I understand you correctly.
Yeah, that's different though from like, so
Go ahead.
I'm confused because I remember seeing I got lots of information sent home about how summer school is not made to, this year it's changed so that you can't make up seat time
Can
in
you
summer
meet,
school.
can you meet, are you talking about a specific level?
High school.
Elementary, high school.
High school.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, you know, so even if a student has done the work enough to pass, but they're because of an attendance issue, they haven't been there enough.
Yeah.
To meet it. That's options no
I
longer
think
on
the
the
difference with
table.
high school, where, I'm referring to with the middle school, with what I said about summer experiences credits versus meeting proficiencies.
So
Chris,
it's not across the.
you want me to just clarify this?
Yeah, Jamie, I mean, you would be better equipped
So
to answer for the
what
high
it
school,
was
but I've answered for the middle school.
Yeah, they can make, if they have not been in school because of attendance, they can still attend summer school. We're not making up that seat time during the school year anymore, but they can attend summer school for that purpose.
So that is then what the notices went home that I got that said, but,
So Katie, I'm gonna make a note to that's a great question, and we
Yeah.
can check that, okay?
it's definitely different than what we received for information. but
Yeah, no, thank you. So we'll clarify that.
And it also
Yeah.
seems
Question.
different than what the administrative regs might be, so that might need to be something for someone to look at.
Well, there's two different policies at play, and so I think this is the
Attendance
interesting.
policy
There's
for
an attend-
third.
Yeah, there's an attendance policy, and then we have a proficiency-based graduation requirement policy. And so you need, and you said this earlier, you need to have kids to come to school so they can learn. They need to be, so they're two, you're right. So they're two separate policies with requirements, and part of our work is to figure out how they work together. And so these are great questions for this group to take back.
Yeah, I'm just figuring out like how,
Yeah.
I think it's so vital and so important that we work on this attendance issue, so I'm so excited about this.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree, I don't think it's ever rebounded since COVID, really.
Yeah.
Well, it's
But
And
these
just
are the
in
most.
my work, I've seen what it's
some
done.
great progress in the last year.
Yeah, this is the,
Thank you.
this is the most positive
Yeah.
trend we've seen.
So I'm really excited about that. I would hate to see some kids that struggle with attendance at the high school level, if this is truly going on with summer school,
Mhm.
to get after missing so many days, just say, forget it, I'm not coming anymore because I already know I can't make it up in summer school.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes that summer school option was the caveat for them. So I, you know what I mean? So I would hate to see that
Yeah.
totally taken away and that off the table for some kids that maybe just
No, I appreciate that.
maybe a month or two where things just might completely arrive for them at home or
Yeah.
whatever, but they could rebound and have that.
Yeah, and so I'll make a note of that, and that's something when we have a team meeting in a couple of weeks, we're all listening to that, and we'll take that back. So I appreciate that feedback. Thank you. Yes, yeah.
So I didn't realize that until you just said it, that there are different measures for different levels, different set of,
I'm not sure about the middle school. I just know the high school, summer
well,
school
we've heard that.
friends have been.
So it's different in each level,
Yeah.
elementary, middle.
Well, developmentally, there's different,
Yeah.
developmentally, it's different.
Okay, but I'm just curious. on this attendance on?
So in the attendance policy and the admin regs, they're written out development by each grade span. Correct.
I just hope that you can take a look at it. It sounds like it's a little bit different than, and I could just be wrong, it just sounds a little bit different from what I'm
No,
hearing.
we appreciate that, and we were just saying that's something we can take back.
Yeah, I think taking a look at both
Yep.
the admin regs of both policies and making sure that there's no contradictory, you know, that they don't contradict each other in any way.
Mhm.
The attendance policy and the personalized learning.
Thank you.
May
Thank you
I?
for the good work.
ask
Thank
a
you everyone
question?
for the good work. So,
Oh, Ray, I think Ray had.
Ray, go
I
ahead.
think I missed when intervention starts in terms of days of missed school.
Yeah, so
At 5 days, we
5
start.
days?
At 5 days, we start a standard letter. And I think Hannah and you know, it's your wheelhouse, but 5 days would be kind of the first official mark, right?
Is that 5 unexcused or?
It's unexcused.
5.
Well, it's
unexcused?
the only thing that doesn't count in it is a medical note from a doctor sent home by the nurse.
Okay,
If it's a suspension day.
okay, so those wouldn't be considered.
So like if someone calls in and says, hey, you know, my son's home sick today, that's not something excused in the attendance policy unless they have a note from a doctor.
Right. Okay, so it's 5 unexcused.
Is that the correct, is that the correct terminology, Hannah? Because I know that we've done some changes with the codes in the
Yes.
system to clear this up.
Yeah.
I just don't want to
It,
misspeak.
it's indicated absent known, right? Because a parent can say, hey, my kid's homesick. Kids
Yeah.
always, you know, kids get sick. We're all human. But that according to our policy, I think it like states the only one that can excuse an absent is the superintendent. And obviously they're not going to call the superintendent to excuse them for their absence, but a medical excuse does not count against them and the rest that Mr. McGuire said. But so we add up like even absent known, or if we don't get a hold of anyone, absent unexcused. So AU, those are considered absences that we count up. When a student gets to 5, we'll start the interventions. But like I said, if it's 5 by now, we're not as worried as 5, you know, at different parts in the
But
school
they
year.
still get the letter. Like if excuse
Yeah.
me, if they hit 5 and it's tomorrow, they still get the 5-day letter and that still starts even though it's okay, the
And
end
that's
of
an
it.
automatic generated letter.
I mean, yes, it's a standard letter. Yes, that goes out and we have someone responsible for making sure that gets sent out at the 5 and 10 day marks.
So I have another question. Are students who hit 25 days, what is their, are some of them actually meeting their scores?
I think I'm generalizing, right? So I'm not, you know, but I think it's rare.
Yeah.
Typically, there's a strong correlation, and I see Hannah shaking her head yes, with if you're not there, you're not, you know, performing and meeting standards.
Okay. Because it could be some children are bored, I suppose, and that's why they don't come to school, or they find ways of excusing themselves from going. But mostly you're dealing with kids that actually should be in their seats in order to make proper progress, right?
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Okay, item B under the superintendent's report, Title III.
Yep, so we have been first, thank you for the team members that came tonight. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate it. Bye-bye. Title III falls under the titles. And we were presented with an opportunity this spring when they started to roll out our title grants to join a regional group on this western part of the state to access Title III money. We don't have enough numbers to individually access the Title III grant. But we do have access to do this in a group. So Melissa Samples here just to give you a little update about what that would mean.
Hi, everybody. I don't think you can see me, but if Adam's around, I'm going to put a ticket in because it looks like my camera's on. I should just run down to the room.
We can see you, Melissa.
Okay, thank you. I'm Melissa Senecal, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and I'm also the coordinator for the district for our used to be called English language learners, and now Vermont calls them multilingual learners. And right now I want to give you some statistics of why we want to do this. 7 out of our 10 schools have multilingual learners. The increase of learners has gone up exponentially in the last 5 years. We currently have about 30 across the district, and we are hearing from many, many staff members that they would like some professional learning in how to incorporate the inclusivity of those learners into their classroom. We've been offering some things this year, and we think that this was a great opportunity. I want to emphasize that Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union is offering to be the fiscal agent. I can, if you want me to, at some point go into what that means as fiscal agent, but it would be with all of your approval, the BRSU, ourselves, and potentially up to 4 other Southwest Vermont districts joining in to be able to do this. And I could bring back to the professional learning district team the evaluations from those so that they can look at those and make sure after they go through them, they'd be vetted by our professional learning team, which is made up by principals and teachers from across the district. So that's what we're hoping that you're able to do it. And I'll be here for any questions, but go, Laura.
So all we need, this is a requirement of the grant, is a motion for us to enter in the consortium with the districts on this side. And again, the BRSU is taking on all the responsibilities. Renee was very excited that they are volunteering to be the fiscal agent. So the motion, I checked with Renee before I came in. We just need a motion to approve the SVSU and becoming a member of a regional consortium to access Title III funding. It needs
So
to be
moved.
referenced in the minutes, and that's it. Oh, right.
Ray, motion made by Ray. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Katie. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any abstentions? Laura, I think you were going to give.
Oh, yes, I have one other update. Thank you.
I want to say thank you very much on behalf of all of the teachers. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Melissa. We at I was at an SVSU meeting I was also at earlier this year. Heather Bullock came in during public comment and spoke about GISP and asked about how GISP could be supported moving forward. And I said that I would take on making connections. So Melissa Senecal and I sat with Heather Bullock here at central office, and we have connected her with our 21st Century Grant Coordinator, Giselle Goyette, and they have plans to connect in the fall. We were able to give some examples of what experiences look like connected to our grant. And so I just wanted to give you an update that conversation has happened.
On that topic, though, the half days for GISP are no longer on the calendar.
Correct. Correct.
And just more pointedly, we were talking about transportation, correct? So when we talk about connections with the 21st Century Grant Coordinator, what does that actually mean for transportation considerations?
So transportation is, we've just finished we're not done yet, but we have about a month left in the first year of the 21st Century Grant. Most all of the 21st Century Grant money has gone to staffing to support staffing. And so there is a small pocket of money that we're trying to navigate to support transportation. And so that might be a future conversation down the road. As a reminder, grants don't recognize inflation. So we get a flat $600,000 a year for the next 5 years. And so the 21st Century Grant Team has their next advisory team meeting in 2 weeks, and that continues to be an agenda item. So Beth, that will be an ongoing conversation.
As it
Thank
has
you.
been, as it has been looked into in the past, because I know this conversation has come up, given the number of buildings and the complexities of transportation, just to level set expectations, is it even possible? There's barely enough bus drivers to do normal routes. You got a lot of buildings.
Correct.
I mean,
All
there's
of them.
things we should be spending our time on, and there's things that you could look at and go, great idea, wish we could do it.
Correct.
What other means might we have to provide a service to these kids?
I don't know a site that hasn't brought up or wondered, and so we try to be really respectful, and we use the 21st Century Grant Advisory Team to think about, and that was when we took this conversation back to the 21st Century Advisory Committee and talked about this piece. I was, and Melissa was there, Chris, you were there. It's a hard conversation to have because you want to make sure what you're providing for one, you want to make sure you're providing for all. And because it is a district grant, so we have to, that advisory team has to have that kind of mindset. So Scott, right?
Well, even
It's a
aside
hard
from the grant,
conversation.
forget grant money, if it was something that we wanted to do, would it, is it even possible? Does
Correct.
D4 have enough buses to?
Oh, yeah, the capacity. They're
Buses, bus
they're
drivers.
absolutely amazing and have worked to problem solve with us. It is, there will never be enough transportation, and anywhere we travel with our regional group, it is the one conversation we wish there's more transportation.
Were you able to use all $600,000 this year for your programming?
I'm turning to Melissa.
I was getting unmuted. I'm sorry. I can tell you that I just had a meeting today with Giselle and Renee, and we are very close to having it all very spent. But that will be something that I don't know if we'll have it for the upcoming advisory meeting to report out to them, or the first one of the year that we would then report out to them how we did with the programming and the funding, and then our plans for expansion, which is exactly what the meeting was at today. But I know this is what I'm excited because we were talking about making it even bigger for the future. So more to come.
Will they allow you to roll over if there is anything left over, are you allowed to roll it over?
My understanding from Renee is no, but I would prefer to hold on giving a finite until she could give that. But that's my understanding. It was no.
Thank you.
Nicole is patiently waiting with her hand raised.
I just, I appreciate that this conversation is coming back to the group because we said we would follow up on it. But when the half days for JISP are taken off of the calendar, it seems like a conversation that I don't quite understand in talking about providing transportation for something that we have now really limited access to because it's no longer supported by the school calendar. Just an opinion.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Nicole.
Yeah. Well,
Right, you look like you're about to say something.
Well, I think the gist thing is said, but actually, I wondered, going back to the absences issue, you've got fairly detailed information about why students are absent, I suppose, because of your intake and your kind of microscope on each individual student. Is there overall that data that wouldn't reveal individuals involved about the causes of absences?
So I would
overall?
go. Yeah, Ray, I would go back to when that you know, when you start an intervention checklist for a child, that's actually a big chunk of what they're doing is they're trying to get very diagnostic and figure out the why, the reason
Mhm.
behind it, so that they can figure out what the child needs. So it is very individualized, and that is actually what we're trying to do. So yes, you're correct, Ray.
Is there a reoccurring theme? Like, I realize every student is an individual and
Mhm.
every situation
Yeah. Right.
is unique, but is there a 6 out of 10 are this?
Yes. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take that back to, because we're again meeting in a couple of weeks, and I think this group has given us some great things to take back to our team. And so one thing I heard from Ray and Scott too is when you're collecting data, another piece of data that might be really helpful, is there a way to look at the why? And is that something that could be reported out? So I'll put that down. So thank you for that. It's a good idea.
Think that it's, you know, a caution, like, you know, obviously I could anecdotally be like, hey, we see this a lot, but I don't, you know, I don't want to bring that forward without
Right.
like actually
Absolutely.
digging into it and
Yeah.
making sure I'm accurate, you know? So, I mean, yes, we have our, you know, our situations that we see, you know, kind of impacting the barriers that we see that come up that impact students, but I'd want to dig in a little bit more and try to categorize that, because like Laura said, you know, each case is so unique, and we'd have to, you know, break it down into some broader brush strokes or something for you.
Fair.
Well, does seem to me that there's got to be some commonalities, even though
Sure, yeah.
individual circumstances
Oh,
change.
no doubt.
And that some of those are likely to be things that aren't even within the control of the program that you're providing. I mean, aren't going to be met by your way of intervening on this. And it would be useful to have, for the SVSU to have a sense of what that is, so that perhaps there are community partners who can make up some of that slack. I know you're dealing with community partners, and I suppose that goes on, but yeah, that's my point, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Beth,
Right.
go ahead.
Yeah, kind of 2 points, one about the gist, but another about the attendance. I think now that I'm at home and trying to hop off my phone, if Nick would let me in, or whoever's in charge of Zoom will let me in on my computer. But just, I think the team members from the attendance team have probably left this meeting, but would just like to congratulate them. It's a huge, huge difference between 250.
You're in now, Beth.
Thanks. Can you hear me now? I had to
Yes.
switch
Yes.
so I wasn't echoing. Just a huge improvement, and difference between 250 and 118 students having 5 weeks of missed school. So kudos to that attendance team. I know that
Appreciate that. You're acknowledging that, Beth. Thank you.
that's not easy work,
They've
and
been working hard.
absolutely. And but as most of you know, I used to work for Head Start, and one of my responsibilities was to track attendance, including attendance that we submitted to SVSU for public pre-K. One of the things that we noticed is that attendance was much lower on half days. And we followed the SVSU calendar, and so having those Wednesday half days did make a significant difference in our attendance rates. So when Ray, you ask questions about those trends, I can only guess that those trends would extend to upper grades as well. And for that reason, I think it was a good call to remove the half days on Wednesdays. I know that that means a difference in support for teachers and planning time and professional development time, but I would expect that we'll see a difference in some attendance data as well.
Are you,
And
sorry, can I ask a follow-up on Beth's comment? Do you mean on half days you saw less attendance?
correct.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I assume that you all collect that level of data, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, we could get that.
Melissa has her thumb up and she's a Jade person.
Does that sound accurate? Does that sound familiar to you that you see lower attendance on half days?
We're not seeing a direct correlation, Beth, that I can have. I want to look at it. The thing that I'm looking at that I can't report out to anybody quite yet would be are we back to pre-COVID attendance? And so that's given to the state. I can pull that from the state. I want to do that at the end of this school year to see how we're doing in comparison. What correlation I can give to Beth and the rest of the group is the dropout rate and excessive, as Vermont calls them, excessive attendance concerns starting in about fifth grade, fourth or fifth grade. When it starts is when we see then a direct correlation to kids not finishing high school. So all of this work is going to help.
Boy, that's good. I'm glad you're getting that data. Yeah.
And I think I remember that the largest percentage of decrease in that chronic absenteeism was in the SVSU ESD. So that the elementary schools, is that true?
I think the largest was in the Arlington district, but I can get right back to that. So Arlington,
85%.
yeah, 85% decrease, excuse me, in Arlington. And then the SVU ESD was a 58.6, MAU was a 47 respectively.
Right. So that's great news.
Yeah.
The last thing I just want to say about transportation and JISP is, you know, when I hear that the major opposition or the major issue might be busing, and the lack of drivers, it makes me wonder and worried as a parent of a student athlete. Does that mean that we are in jeopardy of losing our buses to sports games, away games afterwards? Because at least in the sports that my daughter plays, we haven't had that issue yet. She and her teams are able to get where they need to go after school. So that made me think that was a reasonable expectation for JISP as well, especially because it's in the middle of the day and not at the end. But I'm wondering how worried we should be about that.
I don't think from your point is a good one. I was more coming at it when I raised the concern of the number of buildings. If you have middle school, high school, all of the elementary schools in all of the different towns needing a bus to get a few kids to JISP respectively, then, and you have to have full bus routes going home. Well, now not going home because JISP isn't because there isn't a half day at the same time, but buses getting started to head out for their daily routes, you could run into a situation where you just don't have enough buses and drivers to do all of it at the same time. And I wasn't coming at it from the perspective of that's a given. It's can we level set expectations here to see if it's even possible? I don't know that it is or isn't.
Yeah, the only I think thing we might want to consider is that JISP only extends to middle school, right? So sixth grade maybe is still JISP, and then it's no longer that instructional program. So it would definitely be the elementary schools and sixth grade at the middle school. But I think I also heard from the coordinator that they would expect to be able to have meetup points for different elementary schools. So hopefully that would alleviate that challenge.
Moving into the chair's report, I don't have much for this evening. I do want to, I did get an update that things are progressing nicely with the assistant superintendent search. There are members of the board who have been a part of that process, and thank you for your work there and for moving that process forward, which I know it's continuing to happen. The other thing that I want to acknowledge, and you know, it happens every year this time of year, you look at the posted agenda and you see the resignations and nominations. It's important to note, and nominations, which will also be ramping up in the next few days or next few months. But it is it's a natural it's fairly natural to have resignations happen toward the end of the year. We're reaching the end of the school year. It's also natural to see as the summer progresses, the list of nominations also increase. And I want to take a moment to thank every person who's on this list, has been on lists previously, who are resigning from their role within the SU. Thank you for the work that you've done and for the every effort that you provided for these kiddos. You evolve, every one of you touches these kids in one way or another, and thank you for that work. And to the nominations that are coming in here and will be coming in, welcome. And if you're moving into a new role, or if you're new with us, welcome. And it's just, I think it's a lot of really great people do it, and a lot of really hard work goes into every building and all of these kids. And take a moment to thank everybody for that work that they do day in and day out. We heard some great stuff tonight around attendance, and that work is so needed, and appreciate your efforts there also.
Thank you.
That's
God,
good. Yes.
if it's okay, just to give a brief update on the some of the education reform legislation conversations.
Please
One,
do.
specifically Arlington at our last meeting did vote to join the Rural Schools Community Alliance. And so they are predominantly acting as a lobbying entity to help represent small rural schools in all the legislation changes, and they've been very active. And it seems to be very impactful. I don't know who's been following what's going on, but it's quite a roller coaster. But I know that this doesn't necessarily impact all of the schools within the SVSU, but for Arlington, having the school size minimum removed and the class size minimums adjusted gives us better hope for the viability of our schools going forward. So on that front, I get emails now from the Rural Schools Community Alliance, probably 20 a day. So they're very active. And then the other thing, as it pertains to the SVSU, Todd Wilkins, the Arlington board chair, and I, in Scott's place representing the SVSU, we did meet with the BRSU board chairs. The BRSU board chair, the Taconic and Green board chair, and Randy Lowe as superintendent for the BRSU, because we anticipate that our future going forward, as it looks at governance changes, will involve some, whether it's a county. I don't even know if SUs are going to continue to be in the fold, but if there are SUs, that it could be a county-based structure, in which case we would all be figuring out how to work together. So we've started that conversation. We met with them last week and just talked about what we're reading into the legislation, what we're seeing, what we're concerned about, how it would impact us. And then we'll continue to talk to them about ways that we can start to partner together. If we sit in an SU together, what would that look like? What are the needs of the schools within the BRSU that the schools within the SVSU might be able to assist? How can we basically start to work together? It was a good first conversation. I don't think anybody wants any of these changes to happen, but it seems to be inevitable that it's going to happen. So we're trying to get out ahead of it.
Thank you. Thanks for the update and for your work there.
Yep.
As an FYI, we've got, let's see, budget status report. Number 1018, school community relations. Number 1100, fixed asset policy. Number 6141, internet work and internet acceptable use. Number 7205, board member conflict of interest. Those are just an FYI, they were enclosed in the packet. Then last, we have an executive session.
Okay.
Which is VSA 313A contracts. There may be action when we come out. Nick, is that right?
Hopefully.
There will hopefully be action when we come out of executive session.
Bye.
I'll make the motion and add to it the big Biden Alton.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Just give me a moment. To everybody in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. Coming out of executive session, I need a motion to extend non-union wage increase for directors and associate directors of 3.5% and other non-union employees at 7%. In wage increase.
I'll make that motion.
Associate directors. So Glenn has made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Nicole with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any
Aye.
abstentions? We have, and so one opposed, which was Ray, and any
Yep.
abstentions? Or Ray, did you oppose or were you late to the?
No, I'm opposing because I don't see that that's going to help the people in those positions below 30,000 enough. So that's all.
Thank you.
Yep.
And any abstentions? All right, that exhausts our agenda for this evening. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So
I'll
moved.
make that. I'll second.
Second, motion
Whatever.
made by Beth, seconded by Ray. I
Yeah.
bet it's unanimous. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.